Hey, it's me, Hans Saleh, on episode 22. Coming off from, of course, the Champions League final, Chelsea 1-0 victory over Manchester City. Let's just get this started straight off the bat. Personally, for me, this was a shocker. I predicted in these two in the final, and you can go check out episode 1 of the video libraries here on your YouTube channel, on our podcast. When the Champions League draw was made, I actually predicted Chelsea as the dark horse of this competition that would go really, really far. And once the quarterfinal draw has been made, I immediately predicted it's going to be Man City against Chelsea. But I did not see this coming. I actually predicted over on our Insta story, 433 Podcast Football. If you guys want to go check it out on our Instagram, that I predicted this is going to be a one-sided match. Now, in my defense, I predicted a one-sided match. I did not see it coming because, particularly on the performances of some of these Man City players, from the start, everyone, I gotta say, I didn't look at the starting lineup. I'm not too sure whether it was announced before the game. I wasn't sure whether it's gonna be Chelsea 3 at the back or 5 at the back. I wasn't sure if it's gonna be Timo Werner or Christian Pulisic at the front, or Hakim Ziyech or Kai Havertz on the right hand side. I wasn't sure whether it's going to be even Aguero. I wasn't sure if he would start, but I was 99.9% sure that Guardiola is not going to be playing Sergio Aguero in the final. And of course, Fernandinho I thought would be starting in this, but I wasn't sure, and I was just looking at pound for pound, player for player. This is gonna be a one-sided match. Pep Guardiola never loses a cup final, and a Champions League final, I might add. But I did not see this coming at all, and like I mentioned before, particularly on the performances of Man City, from the start, everyone looked sharp, except for John Stones. Those other 21 players, they look sharp and ready. But the one guy that stood out of the most was obviously N'Golo Kante. And that guy, he stood out of the lot. I have to say, he's an equivalent of 5 or 6 players on the pitch. And the one guy that made a difference was Mason Mount. And if you analyze the best performance of this game, maybe let's say top 5 players, I would probably say 3 or 4 of them are from Chelsea. And that's why Chelsea won the game. Kante was magnificent. Mount was exceptional. Azpilicueta keeping everything stable at the back, especially when Thiago Silva was stretched off. And it's a shame Thiago Silva. He was a rock. Ben Chilwell, all these guys were ready for it. And for Man City, besides the goal, I will have to say that Oleg Zinchenko was the one guy that for the first few minutes looked sharp and was ready, and he looks comfortable. He was so composed. I'm very impressed by him, by the way, despite his performances today. For a young guy, the goal was his mistake, and it turned because the lack of defensive midfielder and steal. And, it's the reason why Zinchenko is, it was his man, because Timo Werner made the run. And there's a lot of space, and Mason Mount just eye of the needle through ball. I don't want to question as to why Guardiola did what he did by not putting Fernandinho or Rodri. And that was a strange selection. Let me tell you why I find it strange. Besides pointing out the obvious, by not putting a holding midfield in your side, you don't get the protection of the back four. At the back four, excuse me. Gundogan is your highest scoring midfielder in your team, yet he's playing as a holding midfielder. Phil Foden, the boy who takes this team at the third half of the field, your best attacker this season, besides maybe probably Kevin De Bruyne, he's playing the center of midfield, so deep. I mean, we've seen him playing on the left this season, on the right against Dortmund, sometimes number 9, but today you put him deep. The only explanation as to why Guardiola did what he did by putting all these guys there is because probably Guardiola recognized the threat of N'Golo Kante. And Guardiola wants to make Kante work and do the chasing instead of the driving force of midfield for Chelsea tonight. So by putting the more attacking players in the midfield, maybe they neutralize Kante and instead of Kante being the driving force, Kante is being pushed down into a defensive midfield position most of the time. Unfortunately, there isn't space for these guys to tire N'Golo Kante. I'm just assuming this was Guardiola's game plan, but thing is, when you do that, then it changes the dynamic of your midfield, and you leave a lot of space in front of your back four. And when you leave a lot of spaces in your back four, it changes the dynamic of your midfield. And Diaz and John Stone probably together have their one and only poorest performance of the season, and very unfortunate it happened to be their most important game of the season. And also, quick shout out, Ricky James had a blast in this game as well. Raheem Sterling should not start this game. I mean, Guardiola again overthinking and decide not to stick with the basics that got him to the dance in the first place. It's a mistake by him, but I mean, come on, he's not a bad manager. It's just that not every time you got it right.